หลายธุรกิจครอบครัวในอดีตดำเนินธุรกิจมาด้วยระบบการเงินแบบเรียบง่ายตรงไปตรงมาหรือให้นิยามแบบเข้าใจง่ายคือถ้ามีเงินสดเข้ามาในกระเป๋ามากกว่าเงินออกก็ถือว่าธุรกิจของเรานั้นแข็งแรงและก็อยู่รอดได้วิธีคิดนี้ได้ส่งต่อดำเนินต่อมาเรื่อยๆจนถึงยุคปัจจุบันที่แนวคิดนี้อาจเริ่มใช้ไม่ได้อีกต่อไปอันเนื่องมาจากกฎหมายข้อกำหนดจากภาครัฐที่รัดกุมมากขึ้นหรือรวมไปถึงความต้องการของผู้บริหารสมาชิกครอบครัวที่ต้องการให้กิจการนั้นเติบโตจึงต้องอาศัยตัวเลขทางการเงินหรือเรียกง่ายๆว่า financial statement มาตีแผ่และวิเคราะห์เพื่อวางแผนเชิงกลยุทธ์ในโลกที่การต่อสู้ของธุรกิจนั้นดูเดือดเป็นอย่างมากด้วยเหตุนี้โครงสร้างงบการเงินในปัจจุบันจึงอยู่ในจุดเปลี่ยนสำคัญที่หลายธุรกิจครอบครัวไม่อาจมองข้ามได้อีกต่อไปหลายธุรกิจครอบครัวที่ถูกข้อจำกัดด้านภาครัฐและความต้องการจากบุคคลภายนอกบีบบังคับนั้นก็อาจมองได้ว่า financial statement นั้นยุ่งยากเสียเหลือเกินจึงปฏิเสธหลีกหนีความจริงไม่ยอมทำงบการเงินให้เข้มแข็งและกลับไปมุ่งเน้นการขายที่เป็นการเอาเม็ดเงินเข้าบริษัทเหมือนแต่ก่อนแต่ทุกคนรู้หรือไม่ครับว่างบการเงินที่ดีหรือ financial statement ที่เข้มแข็งสามารถสร้างผลกำไรให้กับธุรกิจครอบครัวของเราได้เป็นหลายเท่าตัวและธุรกิจครอบครัวหนึ่งที่มีงบการเงินที่ถูกต้องชัดเจนโปร่งใสสามารถทำให้ธุรกิจของเขานั้นมีกำไรเพิ่มขึ้นถึง5เท่าตัวเพียงแค่เริ่มปรับเปลี่ยนงบการเงินให้ถูกต้องเท่านั้นเองเคสสตัดดี้นี้ผมได้มาจากเพื่อนที่เป็นที่ปรึกษาที่ผมรู้จักมาอย่างดีบุคคลนี้มีชื่อว่า Professor A.Stotz ซึ่งวันนี้ผมได้เชิญเขามาพูดคุยในกงสี Expert EP ที่5ในหัวข้อ Family Business Double Your Profit in 12 Months ธุรกิจครอบครัวเพิ่มกำไรเป็นเท่าตัวใน12 เดือนงบการเงินจะสร้างผลกำไรเป็น2เท่าได้อย่างไรในวันนี้เรามารับชมกันได้เลยครับก่อนทุกท่านจะรับชมท่านสามารถเปิดฟังก์ชัน Subtitle ในแพลตฟอร์มที่ท่านรับชมได้เพื่อความเข้าใจที่ครบถ้วนที่สุดของท่านเองสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ For this interview we will interviewing and discuss in English
Perfect I'm good at English
But before we dive into this topic like how family business can double the profit in a year and as far as I know that you have this kind of program too but before we discuss in this matter could you please introduce yourself more in case of someone don't know you and kind of like who you are and what do you do in this area of finance so please introduce yourself please
So my name is A.Stotz and I came to Thailand in 1992 teaching finance and so I've been teaching finance now for 32 years or so but I also was an analyst in the stock market for 20 years so
in Thailand
and so I was ranked as a number one analyst during those days and I was head of research so I learned a lot about the stock market and investing and then I have my own business I have a coffee factory that we started in 1995 so this year we're 30 years anniversary so I understand a lot about business in Thailand from that perspective and then basically I set up my own business about 10 years ago and I do some asset management of about a few billion baht that we do and that's helping Thai people invest outside of Thailand and then I have other courses like Profit Bootcamp like Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp and then I do a lot of other stuff so yeah I'm always but my core really is finance it's my love
so you kind of like the analyst you are the business owner too
yes
you own a coffee shop and as I know it's kind of like the roasting house too
Yeah, I mean, mainly what we are is a roaster. We're a B2B roaster, so we're supplying. We do have some, let's say, showroom type of places, but basically what we're doing is supplying hotels, coffee shops, restaurants, offices, things like that.
And I'm quite sure that your company will be pretty strong in finance too.
Well, I mean, part of my story too was that we got hit very hard during COVID.
Yeah.
And part of what I'm doing now in helping family businesses is saying, I kind of realized we were a little bit weaker than we should have been going into it. And now we've gotten super strong. And now I really want to help other people think about how do you increase the profits of your business.
You say that you are in the finance for more than 32 years in Thailand. What is the importance of the finance in modern world?
It's interesting, you say modern because if we think back to your parents or your grandparents or people who are viewing this, their grandparents, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Maybe the dad or the mom ran the business and the dad or the mom was behind, collecting the cash.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you count up how much cash, you put it in the bank. You don't need complexity.
You don't need the finance model.
You don't need all that. You don't need financial statements. You don't need accountants and all that.
Yeah.
and many of our ancestors, they understood business very simple. It was a cash-based business. If you're not bringing in more cash every day than you're spending, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And they can see that in a bank account. It doesn't take that much. So, but the world's changed and it's just gotten so much more complex, and we're demanded by the government to submit financial statements also. And so we are living in a very different world. And then, of course, the other thing is that we have stock markets nowadays, and many family businesses want to list on the stock market. And in order to list on the stock market, the number one problem everybody has is fixing their accounting and finance. And it's so critical because once you go into the stock market, now you're beholden to many, many investors who are investing in your company. You can't play the game of, doing things halfway. You have to do accounting and finance very seriously. And I'd say that's changed a lot. And the ambitions of a lot of Thai companies and entrepreneurs are, I want to list in the stock market. To list in the stock market, you got to get your accounting and finances together.
So you say that as before, in the past, the financial model is quite simple. It's cash based. If the cash is coming in more than it's coming out, you are financially healthy, right? So, but a lot of business owners like to argue that, so why do they have to understand finance? Because when they want to know finance, when they have to do the financial statement, they're just going to hire someone, some CPAs. But why do they have to understand finance?
Well, I'd say there's a few reasons. I mean, first of all, let's imagine that you started an amazing business that was super successful and made a lot of profit. You probably don't have to think that much about finance. Hire a few people to count the money and expand the business as fast as you can, bring in that money, get it in the bank, and all of a sudden you've got a ton of wealth. But that's not the way the world works anymore. It's very competitive out there. And so you've got to try to understand what resources that you have. And those resources is what you can use to then go into the market and increase your marketing or increase your position relative to your competitor. And many people just don't understand the finances of their business. They understand, entrepreneurs are great salesmen and women.
Yeah.
My business partner in Coffee Works, who runs the business, we had a funny thing happen. He and I were having a discussion about how difficult it was right now, at that time during COVID. And, it was very tough. And then we sat down with a mutual friend of ours, and the friend says, how's it going? And my friend said, it's great. And I just thought, as an entrepreneur, you have to always be charging ahead, getting more sales, getting more revenue, growing the business, satisfying the customer.
Yeah.
But if you forget about the finances of your business, it will catch up to you. And when you have to catch up your finances, it's very difficult and very expensive. And so I always give the same advice, from after listening to people talk about their worst investment for years. I give the same advice to every business owner, whether it's a startup or a mid-sized family business, and that is, number one, have monthly, on-time and accurate monthly financial statements. That's all you need. If you can produce that, the second thing is then meet once a month to review those financial statements. If you can do that, you've solved most of your accounting and finance problems, because most companies, mid-sized family businesses, they're like, oh yeah, we close the books every year. No, you can't run your business that way. And so that really is the biggest tip that I have for everybody listening or viewing, is the idea of make sure that you are closing your books every single month.
So what is the benefit of a family business or mid-sized family business when they're closing a book every month and they know the current status of the financial statement?
So it's a little bit like, imagine, I was riding my car to Chiang Mai a while ago, and I saw this truck, and it had all of this film that the driver had to block the sun. But the film was at the top, and the film was at the bottom, and the driver could only see through a small area in the windshield. And I thought, that's what it's like for most entrepreneurs. They have blacked out windows. They can't, see the information very clearly. But even more importantly, if they get any financial information, it's coming from the rear view mirror. And they're seeing things that happen, through their financial data months and months before. We need on-time and accurate information so that we know exactly what's happening last month versus the month before. And we can see the trends and understand what's working and what's not. So, if you don't have that information, most people are piecing it together. They're getting some sales reports that they make and some customer lists of orders and things, but it's a mishmash of things. The other thing is that many time businesses face the same problem, and that is the entrepreneur is pushing ahead very, very hard, but the employees may be cutting corners, putting paperwork under, in here and not doing this and not doing that and stuff, and then those things are hidden until you close the books. And then you're like, wait a minute, what happened here? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, we have to take a 5 million baht charge to write off this inventory. I wish I had known. Well, one of the reasons why you didn't know is because you weren't looking at your financial statements every month. And remember, I say financial statements. I didn't say balance sheet or income statement. Financial statements means income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. Once you see those, you see problems happening, and then you know that you've got to react and fix those problems.
You mentioned things in the financial statement that is kind of like what resource do you have. So when you know the resource, you will know what could you use to become success. But in terms of the financial statement, what is the success in terms of financial statement?
So the thing that I like to focus everybody on is just net profit.
Yeah.
And for anybody listening or viewing this, basically just look at your revenue and your net profit. Let's say that your revenue is 100 and your net profit is 5. So you're making a 5% net profit margin. 5 to 6% is about average globally.
In most business model or what?
All companies, so part of what I do is a lot of research, and my research into 26,000 companies over 20 years, so throughout business cycles, is about 6% net margin across 26,000 business. Now we can look at different sectors and say, okay, in your sector it may be 7, in your sector it may be 4, but let's just use 6%.
Rules of thumb.
Rule of thumb. If you're producing a net profit margin above 6%, you're above average.
Yeah.
But if you're producing less than 6%, you're below average, and you need to fix it. And for a mid-sized family business that's not listed in the stock market and all that, you really should be aiming for 10. So for every 100 that you sell, you should have 10 in profit at the bottom line. And that's really the main thing to focus on, is get yourself to 10% net profit margin.
But is it financially healthy?
Yeah, if you're at 6% net profit margin, you've got your first step in good shape.
Okay.
Right? 6% is good. Now, as I said, you should aim for 10% to challenge yourself and your team. And you should be looking at that every single month and thinking, okay, we did a lot of marketing spending, so maybe we're down to 4% this month. But we don't want to be down to 4% every month. We want to see that marketing spend start to bring in more revenue, and therefore we get back to 6 or 7 or 8 or 10%. So use it as a guide. Our objective isn't to hit it perfectly, but that's an average. And I would say, again, an average of about 10%.
If you want to grow, like 10% is kind of like a good number. But if you want to stay more simple, more modest, it's kind of like 6% is quite okay. Right?
It's okay, yeah. But the question you have to ask is, if you don't really want to grow and you want to be modest, what are you doing?
It's a great question, right?
What are you doing? Is this a hobby? How many hours are you putting into this, right? For most people, it's all or nothing. 12, 15 hours a day. For I don't want to grow that much. I don't need that much profit. What are you talking about? And you're not making much out of it. So why not put your time somewhere else? Or the other question is, what value are you bringing to this world? I'm a capitalist. My passion is profit. Profit is the evidence that 2 things. Number 1, your product or service has value to this world, where people are willing to pay more than what it costs you to provide it. If they're only willing to pay what it costs you to provide or produce your product, you're not adding value to this world. But when you can sell at a price that's above the cost of what you sell, what you made, then you are adding value to this world. And that really is the core thing that you have to think about is, am I really adding value here? And in business, we have a great measure. It's profit. Now I said 2 things. The first one is, we can look at actually gross profit and say, how much revenue and how much did it cost for us to make that product or that service? And that we can say is, the value that we're creating in the product. But now the question is, are you a good manager? Are you paying your staff the right cost? Is your rent too high? Are you spending too much on marketing? You could have a great business and then waste all the money down till you get no profit.
yeah
So net profit has two impacts. Number one, it helps us understand if you've got a good product and service that you're bringing value to the world. And it understands, as I like to say, revenue is proof of concept, profit is proof of competence. Do you have the competence to generate serious profit out of this business? Maybe you don't.
But when you talk about like doing a business and trying to push business forward, a lot of business owners like to argue that so why not focusing on sales? So why we have to focus on finance? So why don't we focus on sales and let others do finance?
So I like to teach, and in what I teach my students at university, particularly my finance students, I say finance adds no value. And my students who are finance majors is like, wait a minute, I'm studying finance and I want to make good money and I want to add value. No, finance doesn't add value. Finance is a mirror that allows us to give a reflection back to the owner and the management team. This is the results of your actions. Most people don't want to look in the finance mirror because they don't want to see it. But the point that I'm making here is that you never want to run a business based on finance because it doesn't add value. It's a support activity for the management team and the owner. What you want to be able to do is, go get more revenue. That's how you add value. Make your product better. Go get better customers. Drive down your costs. Get economies of scale. Do all that. So there's no conflict in what I'm saying and what the entrepreneur is saying. Well, why do I need to worry about that? Go get your sales. But what I'm saying is that any sustainable business has got to have a strong accounting team collecting data and creating the financial statements. And then it's got to have some type of financial analysis to understand what's happening here.
So is it required that a family member or a family owner have to know and to be kind of like the CFO of the company, or they could appoint someone to become a CFO of the company?
I would have someone else do that. You don't need to do that. I mean, unless that's like what you love.
Yeah.
But if that's what you love, then you're not growing the revenue. So go grow the revenue and find a good accountant and or CFO and get them to help you. But they'll all come in and say that they're going to help you. But what I'm telling you, the one way that you can guide the accountant and the finance people is tell them, all I want is on time and accurate monthly financial statement. That's all I want. And then meet with them once a month. If you do that, very quickly you'll find out whether your accounting and finance people can do it. Many of them can't.
Some of them might be like doing day-to-day job, but they are not actively doing the financial statement.
Yeah, and they're not understanding that, we need to close the books and all of that stuff. So, I've worked with a lot of different companies and I've gone in and basically the entrepreneur has been on a sprint. And I don't have to tell the listener or the viewers on this is that, you're working your ass off. For sure. Everybody's working hard. So you're on a sprint and you've neglected the finance and accounting, but that at some point you got to fix it.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point, like, because finance is not about it's not about you running business financially, but it's kind of like a reflection of you doing things correctly or not, right? Because if you're not doing things correctly, it's kind of like you eating fast food all the time, and in some time you'll get fat and you get unhealthy.
Yeah,
and you have to pay for that eventually. Right.
Yeah, it's like someone says, what is your job? My job is working on grades like ABC. No, nobody's working on grades, right?
Yeah.
Grades are just a tool to give feedback to students how you're doing in that subject.
Okay. But when they're trying to understand on what aspect that they have to look on, so in terms of a business owner, as a shareholder, as a director, what financial aspect that they have to look inside the financial statement or balance?
Okay, let's have fun, right? Let's have some fun. So first thing I've already told you is profit. Number one, you've got to be generating profit. But there's two other aspects that you want to look at. One is what we call net working capital. And net working capital is how much credit terms do you have to give your client? You sell, but they say, I'll pay you in 60 days. And then they don't pay you until 90 days. All of a sudden, you have a need for cash, right?
It's kind of like account receivable.
Accounts receivable.
Yeah. Okay.
So accounts receivable, number one, nobody would ever choose to have accounts receivable. They only do it because it gets them a customer. And the customer says, I don't want to pay right now.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to do that, right? If you ran your business and said, no, I don't give credit terms. There's plenty of people that have done that. You can do that. You're going to lose some customers, but you say, oh, but I'll give you a 10% discount. Hey, you're going to have some customers. But I think what I want people watching this to understand is that accounts receivable are a choice. And I always ask people, business owners, why do you give credit terms? They say,
Because they want customers.
yeah, because my competitor gives credit terms. Okay, so at least we now understand that your strategy of giving credit is not your strategy. You're just doing it because a competitor is doing it. Okay. That doesn't mean you have to do that forever. There's many companies out there that have come up with different strategies. So that's the first thing is accounts receivable. And if you have a lot of accounts receivable, you're in trouble. You may be making profit, but you don't have cash flow. A friend of mine has a consulting business which has been very successful over many years. I just ran into his wife and I talked to her and he told me, I said, hey, how's he doing? And she said, he had to close the business. Why? He's very successful because he had a huge client who refused to pay. And he was depending on that. And that one huge client basically bankrupted him. So accounts receivable are critical. But the second part is inventory. And if you're in a manufacturing business or something like that, inventory is critical. If you have to constantly be expanding, so give you an example of my own coffee business. If I'm going to have $1 million in sales, I need $500,000 of inventory on my floor. That means if I want to double my revenue to, let's say, 2 million, now I have to have $1 million in inventory on my floor. How am I going to come up with that money every time I grow my business? What makes companies like CPL in Thailand so amazing is that they have very little inventory and no accounts receivable. You don't walk into a 7-Eleven and say, can I get 30-day credit terms? Right? There is no credit terms.
It's kind of like cash company.
It's cash business.
Yeah.
And so with a cash business, they don't give any accounts receivable. And so they don't have that trouble. But for most people, they have accounts receivable and they have inventory. And so if you're in a situation where growing your business requires more and more money, then you need to look at this concept of working capital or what we call net working capital. So we have profit and we have working capital. And the third thing is capital expenditure. You need to buy a new machine, you need to buy a new operation, you need to upgrade what you've got. If you're making great profit, but you have to spend a lot on accounts receivable and inventory, and then you also have to spend on the capital expenditure, what you're going to find is that at the end, when you look at profit minus net working capital minus capex, what we're talking about in the world of finance is free cash flow. Now imagine if you had great profit, no increase in working capital. Let's say in my coffee business, if we told our supplier, we only are going to receive coffee every single day, what we're going to roast. We're not going to hold any on our floor. And our supplier says, that's fine with me. So all of a sudden, our inventory went to zero, right? Great, we can do that. And so if we can bring down that, we can find out that actually to grow our business, we don't need anymore. And let's say we go to our customers and we say, we don't give you credit terms. We lose some of our customers, but then let's say that we start to grow our business, we don't require capital and cash for inventory or accounts receivable. Now, it's a little unrealistic, right? Because we have to deal with those things. But this gives you a picture. If you had a business that didn't have to account for those things, you could grow without a need for cash. Now, let's now look at the other part, the capital expenditure. If you have a business that, what I like about my business is that, like many factories, I can get more and more and more orders and can produce more and more out of my factory. The capacity utilization can be filled up, and then I can add another production line. Simple.
So you say that is the successful aspect of financial statement is kind of like the profit, receivable, inventory, and capital expenditure that you're spending. do they have to be all green? Do they have to
No.
be like healthy?
You just need to know. You need to understand. You need to think, okay, yeah, if we're going to double our revenue, how much is that going to increase our accounts receivable? You know, you just need to know these things and start thinking about them.
Okay.
I just did a video for my YouTube, which I'll publish in a couple of days, on the company Hermes. Hermes is an incredible company. Its net profit margin is 34%.
Fashion company, right?
Yeah.
Hermes, right?
Hermes, the fashion bag company and all that. And that means for every 100 they sell, they keep 30 in profit. It's enormous.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting about Hermes is that they're retail, so they don't give credit. So they have no accounts receivable. And they manage their inventory very, very well because they have their own stores. They don't give their inventory out to anybody else. So they manage, so their inventory is tiny. So their amount of, when they expand, as they just almost doubled the size of their business in the last 3 or 4 years, which is incredible. When they did that, they had almost no needs for working capital. And they're not producing at full capacity. They can add on more artisans to make the bags and stuff without a huge amount of cost. So they have a small amount of capex. So I just did a calculation for this video, and it showed that in the last 4 years, 90% of the profit of Hermes went to the shareholders. It was free cash flow after the inventory, after the accounts receivable, after the capex.
It's the dividend that come back to
So
shareholders.
the free cash flow is the amount, is where you can pay dividend out of.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the most important point is I always give the advice to mid-sized businesses as you're, starting to be really serious. You must pay a dividend every year. Absolutely. Twice a year, 4 times a year, you must pay a dividend. I went through a study, I did a study of about like 11 million companies in America to try to understand like how many were truly successful. And by the time I got down to it, and my truly successful is that they're paying a dividend. My estimate is somewhere between 40 and 50,000 businesses in America are paying a dividend on a regular basis out of millions of businesses. And I looked at the statistics in Thailand. We've got, couple million businesses in Thailand. But I'd estimate that probably 5,000 businesses in Thailand pay a dividend on a consistent basis. You could say, oh, Andrew, well, from a tax perspective, maybe I don't want to do that. Yeah, I understand that. So pay 5% of your profit as dividend. But start the process of paying a dividend right now. Because a sustainable business, look at companies like ExxonMobil, companies like Procter & Gamble, companies like Unilever. These companies have been around 150 years. And they have been consistently paying dividends for decades. Some of them for 100 years. They've been paying dividend.
So why paying dividend reflects or portray the successful family business?
Because most people can't. Go out and ask them, and they don't know, and they're not doing it. So first of all, most people just aren't doing it. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that to build a truly successful business, you have to reward the shareholders. You can't just reward yourself, right? If it's your family business and you and your sister and your brother and so on, you're taking money out of the company and buying a nice car, and the company's paying the rent for your place, which is great. You're getting a great salary. Yeah, that's not necessarily a sustainable business. That when we talk about a sustainable business, we're talking about you got to get in new shareholders. You got to attract new capital. You want to go into the stock market. Those types of things. You have to bring people in, and one of the best ways that you can prove that you're consistent and do what you do, you have a stable business, is that you produce a dividend. Now, I wouldn't give that advice to a startup, right? You're raising a lot of money to expand. Doesn't make sense. But for a mid-sized business, if you got a family business right now and you're thinking to yourself, can I take this business to the next level? Start paying a dividend. Because you also have you have to have all your finances together in order to do that.
Yeah, correct. So as you say that a lot of financial aspects on the checklist is about like inventory, like doing the net profit. So the next question should be like how finance aspect, as we discussed, help the family business double the profit. And could you raise some case study that you do on your own?
So what I help companies double profit in 12 months. And I have no doubt that I can help almost any company double profit. It's not that difficult. And it's not about finance. Finance is just a measure that helps us see where's the strengths, where's the weakness of this company. So I have a benchmarking system, and I take that company and I say, okay, let's benchmark your company, and then I see, this is your weakness. And then what I do is I set up 4 teams on the management team, 1 team revenue, 1 team expense, 1 team assets, and another team risk. These are the 4 drivers of the value of a business: revenue, expense, assets, and risk. And then what I basically say is, every single month, I'm going to come back here and we're going to look at the financial statements and see how you did on improving each of these 4 measures. And we're going to have a discussion about it and many other things that we do. And by just focusing on these 4 things, you slowly come together and you start to bring profitability. But the first step in increasing the profits of a business is deciding that you want to increase the profits of your business.
so that's step 1
So all of my clients have to sign a profit manifesto.
manifesto
It's a manifesto to say our number 1 goal in our business right now is to double profits in the next 12 months. You don't want to sign that? Enjoy what you're doing. When you're ready to sign that and double your profit, let's do it. And I think that whether people hire me or not, they should have a discussion about that.
right
Because, people, family members and other people say, oh, I think we should be doing something different. Okay, fine. Everybody wants to do something different. But I come along usually when people are struggling and they realize they got to fix it. And that's the first thing I do. And let's have a discussion. And it's already, I know you do family constitutions and things like that. There's a lot of heated discussion. Same thing on this. But once they sign that, that's step 1. And I would say that's probably 50% of it. Just deciding this is our number 1 thing and then getting feedback on that number 1 thing.
so when we are talking about step 1 of how could they improve their profit, the step 1 is that the family member should be in consensus that they want to double or like
Well,
make
let's pick double for right now.
Yeah.
Because that's a good target.
yeah
Serious, but it's also impactful.
but is it achievable?
It's achievable easily. Now, there are some dying businesses out there.
a lot
There's a lot of dying businesses. If you can't come to terms and come to an agreement that you want to double profits of the business, it could be you're in the wrong business. It could be you're the wrong person to run it. Don't know. That would be a discussion that would be an interesting discussion. But ultimately, let's say that you get to the point where you decide, okay, I want to do this. Well, yeah, it's just like if you came to me and you said, or let's say I go to a trainer and I say, I want to lose weight and gain 20 or 10 kilos of muscle. Can you do it in a day?
no
How about a week?
not really
Even a month, you can't do that. You can't. Muscle takes time to build.
but a year
But a year, you can do it. You could be completely transformed. And all the trainer is going to say is, come to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to give you a hard 1-hour workout. And when we do that, then get good sleep and eat good food. And just trust the process. That's a lot of what I do, right? Basically, what's your goal? Okay, double profit. All right, I'm going to meet with you every 2 weeks, which I go to my clients every 2 weeks. I sit down for 3 hours. Now I have about 40 courses that are short courses on the different topics that are necessary. And I say, watch that course, and when I come back, we're going to talk about that and how we're going to implement that in your business. And we're going to talk about also. So that's a second thing. So first decide. Second thing is set a plan of a regular meeting where you're meeting only about doubling profits of the business. And then the third thing is, this is a hard one that many people don't want to double the profits of the business because it's hard. No conflict left unresolved. Every conflict between brother and sister, mother and son, father and son, all conflicts have to be addressed and resolved.
The problem under the carpet, they have to like untuck it and discuss it on the table right now.
Yep. Because you can't double the profit of your business if you don't deal with the core problems. And like one of my clients, the core problem was one of the siblings thought the business should go this direction, and the other one thought it should go that direction. And I have respect for both of them, right? They both have great ideas. But in the end, only one person can really run this business. So my question I asked is, who's going to run this business? Well, she is. Then I'm sorry, she's going to have to be the one that has to decide if she wants to do what you're saying or whether this business is going to go her direction. Unless you tell me you want to run the business. And in this case, he said, I don't want to run the business. So, I'm sorry, but, we have to make some tough decisions. But they sat there for years debating this topic and not being able to make a decision. And with a very short, because the number one goal now that we've all signed is to double profits in the next 12 months. So let's get to it.
At the end of the program or the goal, what are the tangible success or outcome that they could achieve when they double the profit?
In the cases of two of my clients, I would say one of them doubled profit, and one of them tripled profit, and one of them 5x their profit. And one of them, another one that after the Profit Bootcamp, they doubled again. 12 months, within 6 months, they doubled again.
By their own?
Yes.
Wow.
Once I left, because my job is not to, I don't want to be there all the time. I want to help. I'm a catalyst. I'm helping to cause the explosion that's going to go forward and then take it forward. And so, so the tangibles are all of a sudden you have confidence. I can run this business. This business isn't dying. I can do it, and we can do it. The second thing is that for 12 months of working together as a team to try to double profit, you're going to find out who are your strong and who are your weak players. It's going to show. And you're going to have to make a decision. And the third thing is that it's going to open you up. So it's going to take all your cash flow pressures off because you're making cash. So your cash flow pressures come off, and all of a sudden you can start thinking about how do I build this business with a solid foundation using the excess cash that I've got from the profits that I've been generating. And so that's, another big one. And for some, another tangible one is now they can go list in the stock market. You can't list a company. Everybody says to me, I want to list my company. Well, what's the net margin? 2%. Who wants to invest in that? And what you need to prove to the market as an analyst looking at companies, you need to prove to the market that you can produce profitable growth. It's got to be profitable, net margin is high, and you can grow this business. Otherwise, why would I put my money with you when I can put it in other companies, or I can put it in Facebook or whatever? Nowadays, the investors, young investors in Thailand, they can invest anywhere.
Yeah.
So why do they have to, come and invest in your company? And we're seeing it in Thailand stock market, for the last few years, is that once the choices are out there, when I was an analyst in 1993, the only place that Thais could invest was the Thai stock market. And now they can invest anywhere. And so the point is, you have to provide a attractive story to the market and prove that you've got profitable growth.
To become sustainable.
Yeah. And to list in the stock market and, be a sustainable business in the stock market.
Yeah.
Not just, IPO and then share price goes down and then, nobody's happy about that.
Because like some of the family visit, they like to list in the stock market so they can exit quietly. Yes.
Which I would argue doesn't really work because the problem with that is that if your goal is to exit, then you're not going to make a great business that people really want to own.
Yeah.
You're going to be, even if you don't tell anybody you want to exit, you're going to be not driving this business higher and higher. I had a student at Sasin that I really admire him. He's got a business that he's growing very fast. And he came to my class on valuing business and to value his business and think about it. But he just said, I have only one goal, and that is I want to list this company on the stock market. And after I list it on the stock market, I want to run it for the next 20 years and make it successful. That's amazing.
That's quite a goal.
It's great. And, so I went to see him at his office to go through a bunch of stuff and meet his CFO and some others who CFO happened to be a former student of mine. And, he was already the business was, let's say, mid-size, and he's already implementing SAP as an accounting system, very advanced and expensive. He's already building in his corporate governance board and stuff like that. He had a vision, and I admire that, definitely. But most people want to list for other reasons.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of the topic that we are discussing about how families can double their profit in a year, you said it can and it's achievable, and it has the ultimate outcome from it. So in case that the audience who is listening to this episode want to contact you or they're interested into double the profit, what are the channel that they can
Just go to LinkedIn, look for my name, Andrew Stotz. Send me a message.
start with
STOTZ.
Z.
Yeah, and then leave me a message on LinkedIn.
Leave you a message.
Yeah, but you don't even have to do that, right? Go double your profit. Set it as a goal. Get the whole team focused on it and decide that nothing's going to stop us from doing that. You don't need me. You know, I go in and help companies when they do need support, but this is not complex. Before we talked about get your financial statements right, on time and accurate monthly financial statement. Get that first, and then sign your own manifesto to double profit. You don't need me.
Yeah.
But if you decide, hey, I want to guarantee that we do it, and I want to really change my business, send me. LinkedIn's a good one. I'm right there. I'm always there.
Yeah. But in case that you want to double your profit, and you can do it,
Contact you.
contact me or contact you.
Yeah, either
Contact
way.
you. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming here. And I think that in the next episode, we can invite you and discuss more about the case study that
There's
you
so much.
run for 30 years.
Yeah, so much to do. So my name is Andrew Stotz. I'm a capitalist, and my passion is profit. Your profit.
See you next time ครับ ขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ติดตามช่องคุยกับกงสีฝากกดไลค์กดติดตามเพื่อไม่พลาดเนื้อหาสาระดีๆในอนาคตรวมถึงฝากติดตามพวกเราได้ที่ช่องทางอื่นอาทิ Facebook Instagram หรืออื่นๆอีกมากมายตามที่ได้ระบุไว้และที่สำคัญที่สุดฝากกดแชร์เรื่องราวการพัฒนาธุรกิจครอบครัวให้กับเพื่อนๆพี่ๆน้องๆหรือคนในครอบครัวของเรากันได้เลยครับ